After Jinwoo successfully completes the Jeju Island raid, the funeral for Min Byung-Gu is held and Jinwoo attends it. As he arrives, all the cameramen immediately start snapping photos of him. Jeju Island and Jinwoo quickly become the hottest topics on the internet, and people flood social media with comments praising Jinwoo for his heroic actions, calling him the GOAT. One person even shares how watching Jinwoo's summoned magic beasts fight the ants inspired him to overcome his battle against cancer. This marks the first time the public witnesses Jinwoo's abilities thanks to the live telecast of the Jeju Island raid. While many people demand that Jinwoo be made a national-level hunter, others argue that he lacks experience. Some are still unaware that Jinwoo is a second awakening. Although his actions are widely praised, there are also criticisms. Some question why Jinwoo did not join the raid from the very beginning and argue that his earlier involvement could have saved more lives. This creates a divide between those who support him and those who criticize him for the casualties. As Jinwoo looks at Min Byung-Gu's picture, he notices the grieving family nearby. Baek approaches Jinwoo and admits that he never believed one person could win a war. However, after witnessing Jinwoo's recent fight, he realizes he was wrong. With pride in his voice, Baek tells Jinwoo to keep his chin up for putting an end to the tragedy and thanks him. As Baek starts crying while remembering his dear friend, Cha Hae-In watches from the side. Suddenly, she blushes at Jinwoo, causing him to furrow his brows in confusion, wondering why. Meanwhile, it is revealed to everyone that a total of 4,801 hunters participated in the Jeju Island raid, along with 727 awakened civilians. The death toll includes 64 hunters and 32 civilians, which is the lowest number of casualties compared to previous Jeju Island raids. Later, Jinwoo meets with Chairman Go Gun-hee, and Chairman mentions that he heard Jinwoo is planning to form a guild. He explains that S-rank hunters do not need a guild master's license and only need to contact the Hunters Association to handle the process. As Jinwoo listens, he begins to think about the benefits he could receive as an S-rank hunter. Shifting the conversation, Chairman Go asks if Jinwoo cast any kind of barrier during the Jeju Island raid. He explains that all the A-rank and B-rank hunters from the Knights Guild who went to Jeju Island to collect essence stones and clear ant corpses were found unconscious. Jinwoo denies doing anything like that, and Chairman Go agrees, saying he does not believe Jinwoo was involved. Curious, Jinwoo asks what the hunters said, and Chairman Go responds that they have no recollection of what happened. He adds that there is no way of knowing if the hunters were under a magic spell. Jinwoo begins to wonder if it could be a trap left behind by the ants. Suddenly, one of the chairman's associates interrupts the conversation to remind him of a meeting. Chairman Go excuses himself, saying a guest is waiting for him, and thanks Jinwoo for his time. As the meeting concludes, Jinwoo also decides to leave. After Jinwoo starts walking towards his car, someone suddenly calls out to him. Jinwoo turns around and sees a man who introduces himself as Adam White, a senior official from the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Adam mentions that he had even visited Jinwoo's office and comments on how difficult it is to track him down. Jinwoo then recalls Jinho mentioning a foreigner visiting his office the other day. Curious, Jinwoo asks Adam what business the Federal Bureau has with him. Adam replies that he wants to share some information with Jinwoo and adds that no other country or organization in the world can provide this information. Intrigued, Jinwoo asks what kind of information it is. Adam explains that the information could benefit both of them and mentions that their original plan was for him to meet Jinwoo alone. However, the Jeju Island raid left such a strong impression on the deputy director that he also wishes to meet Jinwoo. Adam adds that the rest of the details will be explained by the deputy director himself and mentions that a car is waiting nearby if Jinwoo is interested. Jinwoo, however, remains cautious and says he is unsure if the information is reliable. He tells Adam that he will think about it and give him a call later. Realizing that he needs to make the offer more enticing, Adam decides to reveal a small part of the information. He mentions the term upgrader, which immediately shocks Jinwoo. Adam explains that an upgrader is an awakened being who has the ability to further enhance the abilities of hunters. Hearing this, Jinwoo becomes intrigued and decides to go with Adam to learn more. They both head to a hotel where the deputy director is waiting. Upon arriving at the hotel, the deputy director greets Jinwoo and introduces himself as Michael Connor. Using Adam as an interpreter, they all sit down to discuss the matter. Michael slides a set of immigration documents across the table and offers Jinwoo American citizenship if he decides to join them. Jinwoo, however, with a strong gaze replies that he is there to learn about the upgrader who can enhance the abilities of other hunters. He questions whether such an upgrade is even possible. Michael Connor smiles at the question and responds by saying that they have someone with the abilities of an upgrader right there. He then commands Selner to come in. After Jinwoo sees Selner, he is shocked by her presence. Then Michael Connor further explains that she is the the only person in the entire world who can enhance the abilities of other hunters. As Jinwoo looks at her, he realizes that she is a completely different type of awakened being. Connor then requests Selner to explain her abilities to Jinwoo. Selner begins by acknowledging that Jinwoo might be skeptical about the information and says that this is not the first time she has seen such a doubtful expression. With a confident look, she adds that once he experiences her powers, he will start begging for more. Then Selner explains a common fact about awakened hunters, that they all have a limit to their strength and they cannot surpass it unless they undergo a second awakening. Jinwoo asks if she can change that, and Selner confidently replies that she has the power to help hunters go beyond their potential. She begins to explain the process, mentioning that it involves 3 stages and could be considered a form of forced reawakening. Connor confirms everything Selner says and adds that she requires a long period of rest between each session, which limits her to helping only 3 or 4 individuals per year. Jinwoo then asks if he is going to be one of those 4 individuals and how effective the process is. Selner explains that the results depend on the individual, but she can enhance their strength by around 20 to 30%. Hearing this, Jinwoo calls it insane and begins to understand why Dong-soo decided to move to America, despite all the public hate. He reflects that no one would turn down such an offer. Jinwoo then asks what would happen if anyone found out about Selner. Connor replies that this is why she is always under their care, ensuring her safety and providing her with a hefty salary. Connor then presents Jinwoo with a gift to give him a glimpse of Selner's powers. He further adds that once Jinwoo becomes a hunter for the Federal Bureau, he will be their top priority, and also promises to help Jinwoo sign with one of the best guilds, and emphasizes that Jinwoo does not need to make a decision right away. Connor assures him that they need nothing in return, and are offering this as a complimentary service. As Jinwoo thinks to himself, he recalls Selner's confident words about how he will beg for more after experiencing her powers. Then Selner begins the process by holding Jinwoo's hand and asking him to close his eyes. Connor, watching this, is pleased and thinks to himself that Jinwoo has taken the bait. Jinwoo, impressed by how he is able to keep his composure even after hearing such overwhelming information. She feels confident that once the first stage of the process is complete, Jinwoo will contact them again. If he is the impatient type, she believes he might even sign the agreement right away. As she reflects on Jinwoo's potential, she compares him to Goto Ryuji, who is strong enough to be considered a national-level hunter. However, she acknowledges that Jinwoo is far stronger, having successfully completed the Jeju Island raid. Selner begins to wonder just how much Jinwoo is truly capable of. As Selner starts the process, she delves into Jinwoo's soul to assess his potential. However, all she can see is a dark, overwhelming aura surrounding an overpowered being with a strong, cold gaze fixed on her. The sheer intensity of this vision shocks Selner, and she suddenly starts shouting in fear and panic. Her outburst shocks everyone in the room. One of the agents immediately turns to Jinwoo and demands that he explain what he has done to Selner. Connor quickly intervenes, commanding the agent to stop and reminding him of who Jinwoo is. He firmly tells the agent to stand down and instead directs them to check on Selner to ensure she is okay. Connor quickly apologizes to Jinwoo for the commotion, but Jinwoo, still shocked by everything happening, wonders what is going on. Connor turns to the agent and sternly reminds him that if this kind of behavior were directed at someone like Thomas Andre or Liu Jigang, they would all be dead by now. This statement leaves the agent visibly shaken and silent. As Connor notices Selner trembling and sweating, he asks if she is feeling unwell. Seeing her condition, Connor decides not to make Jinwoo wait any longer and suggests rescheduling the process for another time. He requests Adam to escort Jinwoo out and turns back to Selner, asking again what exactly happened. Still trembling, Selner finally speaks with a shaky voice and says that Jinwoo is a king and far more powerful than anyone she has ever encountered. Connor is stunned by her words and asks if Jinwoo is a national-level hunter. Selner shakes her head and replies that she does not know, as she has never performed this process on any of the national-level hunters before. She continues explaining that while she was looking into Jinwoo's internal soul, it was also looking back at her. She describes it as an infinite darkness within him, something far beyond her comprehension. She adds that it is not Sung Jinwoo she saw. It is an overwhelming, limitless power that resides within him, a power with no boundaries. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Korean Hunters Association, where Chairman Go Gun-hee is heartbroken over Min Byung-Gu's death. Despite no longer being a hunter made such a noble sacrifice. The thought of closing the raid this way weighs heavily on his heart. He acknowledges that there will be more obstacles in the future and that this tragedy might not end with just one sacrifice. Suddenly, he receives a call and is informed about a B-rank gate that has appeared in the middle of the road. He responds that the B-rank gate should be handled by one of the major guilds, but is surprised to learn that the gate is near Jinwoo's office. The scene then shifts to Jinwoo, who is deep in thought about the situation with Selner. He wonders what she saw in him, whether it might be connected to the system, and why she was so afraid. He recalls the terror in her eyes and thinks that she might never want to meet him again. As Jinwoo waits in traffic, he grows frustrated and wonders about the cause of the delay, reflecting that this is why he prefers using the subway. Suddenly, he receives a call from Chairman Go Gunhee, and Jinwoo asks if something is wrong. Chairman Go then explains that there is a gate in the middle of the road, and Jinwoo realizes that this is the reason for the heavy traffic. He then requests Jinwoo to take care of the B-rank gate. Jinwoo responds that he needs permission to handle the gate. Laughing, Chairman Go asks where someone would get permission to raid a gate. Jinwoo realizes that the chairman is giving him permission and laughs along. He assures Chairman Go that he will take care of the gate. The scene shifts to the B-rank gate, where a live TV broadcast is taking place. Members of the Hunters Association are safeguarding the gate, ensuring that no one comes too close and requesting everyone to follow the regulations. Jinwoo arrives at the scene and starts walking toward the gate. One of the members stops him and informs him that he needs permission to enter. And as she looks at him more closely, she suddenly recognizes him as Sung Jinwoo. Everyone quickly realizes that Jinwoo has come to handle the gate. The member informs Jinwoo that even though he is an S-rank hunter, he cannot ignore the rules. She asks if he has permission for the raid and mentions that even with permission, he cannot enter without enough people. Jinwoo then calls Chairman Go Gunhee and explains that there is a problem. He hands the phone to the member, who visibly shocks and asks who it is. Jinwoo replies that it is someone she cannot ignore. Chairman Go confirms to her that Jinwoo has permission to enter the gate. With that, Jinwoo starts walking toward the gate. Seeing his overconfidence, the member prays sarcastically that he trips over himself and breaks his ankle. Suddenly, the gate turns into a red gate, shocking everyone present. The member, horrified, wonders if her prayer caused this to happen as she watches the scene unfold. Jinwoo sees the red gate and gives it a strange look, realizing that he might have to overdo things again. As he prepares himself, he suddenly remembers his mother's words. She once told him that there is nothing they can do about the awakening, and that as an S-rank hunter, he has a responsibility to save more lives, just like his father. She explained that his father was a firefighter, and it was his selfless acts of saving others that made her fall in love with him. She also requested Jinwoo not to overdo his work, reminding him to take care of himself. Remembering her words, Jinwoo feels relieved, knowing that his mother is not against his path as a hunter. Suddenly, magic beasts start charging at him, and without hesitation, Jinwoo summons his shadows, confident that he can finish the task within a day. The shadows and the magic beasts clash fiercely. Mage-type shadows use their flame magic to burn the beasts, while others engage in close combat. The scene shifts to Cha Hae-In, who is undergoing training with her teacher. Her teacher is none other than Song Cheol, who used to raid with Jinwoo and lost his hand during the double dungeon incident. Cheol shares his wisdom with Cha Hae-In, explaining that monsters are not the only enemies hunters face. He warns her that hunters must always be cautious, as they can become the hunted at any moment. He emphasizes that a hunter's position can change at any time, and this is why first-rank hunters must be even more vigilant. He concludes by saying that even if after hundreds of hunts, the hunt will never truly end. The scene then shifts back to Jinwoo, where his shadows are locked in battle with the magic beasts. Igris slashes through the beasts, and Iron smashes them with brute force. And Tusk also joins the party and burns them with powerful flames. And Beru starts roaring, killing many magic beasts at once. Then Jinwoo starts walking slowly toward the forest, exuding an aura of calm authority. As he approaches, all the shadows kneel before him, showing their unwavering loyalty. Jinwoo commands them to move on to the next target. The scene shifts to a completely unrelated place, where a human is visibly shocked upon seeing the Frost Monarch. The Frost Monarch, looking down on the human, coldly states that the fragments of brilliant light he is searching for cannot be found anywhere here. Suddenly, Yogumunt appears. The Frost Monarch, surprised by his presence, asks what he is doing there. Yogumunt replies that he has come to deliver news about the land in the east. Intrigued, the Frost Monarch asks if he is referring to the small strip of land in the east where the Shadow Monarch resides, and questions whether Yogumunt is in charge of that area. area. Yogumunt explains that the rulers are planning to release Legia from the southern region and that he is heading there. The Frost Monarch then inquires about the Shadow Monarch, to which Yogumunt replies that as long as the architect fulfills his agreement, there will be no issues. Yogumunt adds that he has another interesting piece of information to share and confirms that the greatest fragment of brilliant light is real. Hearing this, the Frost Monarch becomes intrigued and smiles, expressing his surprise that Yogumunt has come in person to share such information. Yogumunt then asks if the Frost Monarch is ready to seize this opportunity, and the Frost Monarch replies that he will gladly accept it. The Frost Monarch then remarks that they are being lured by someone, and that there is no way this person could possess the power of the fragments. Suddenly, a figure begins walking toward them, and the Frost Monarch immediately realizes that this person is trying to interfere with their plans. The person appears with a strong, commanding aura and gives them a cold, piercing gaze. He then questions if they are referring to South Korea as the small strip of land in the east. Yogumunt, unimpressed, boldly states that they should not waste their time on a weakling like him and opens a portal. The Frost Monarch, however, looks at the person with interest and challenges him to catch him if he can. The person starts running toward the Frost Monarch, attempt to attack him. However, the Frost Monarch effortlessly stops the attack with an ice barrier, creating a powerful shockwave that ripples through the area. The Frost Monarch laughs at the futile attempt, while the person is left shocked, realizing that his attack has failed. The scene shifts back to the Red Gate, where the dungeon boss is furious at Jinho for killing all its companions. The boss, speaking in the beast language, applauds Jinho for making it this far, but warns him that he cannot go beyond this point. With a commanding tone, the dungeon boss calls for its fellow beasts to come out, but to its surprise, no one responds. Jinho, looking at the dungeon boss, smirks and calls him a funny guy and commands his shadows to appear. In an instant, all of Jinho's shadows emerge, carrying the lifeless bodies of the magic beasts they had defeated. This sight enrages the dungeon boss, and Jinho calmly commands his shadows to attack, initiating the fight. The battle begins as the shadows clash with the dungeon boss. Two of the remaining magic beasts attempt to attack Jinho, but Tank suddenly appears out of nowhere and kills them with ease. The dungeon boss, now even more enraged, lets out a deafening roar. Beru and Igris immediately charge at the boss. Beru slashes its hand, while Igris follows up by slashing its leg, causing the dungeon boss to collapse to the ground. As the boss struggles, Tusk uses his Hymn of Giants to grow larger, and then activates his skill, Gravity Acceleration, slamming the dungeon boss into the ground with immense force. Then Jinho slowly walks toward the fallen dungeon boss, exuding an aura of authority. He commands the boss to answer his question, promising to make its death less painful in return. However, just as the dungeon boss is about to respond, the system intervenes, preventing it from speaking. With no other choice, Jinho finishes the dungeon boss off. As the fight ends, Jinho reflects to himself, confident that he will uncover the truth about the system in time. Jinho then takes out a key, remembering how he needed to reach level 100 to unlock its description. Now that he has finally reached the required level, he examines the key. The system reveals that it is the key to the Katanan Temple, and that it can only be used at a specific gate. And the location of the gate will be revealed in exactly 417 hours, 6 minutes, and 52 seconds. As Jinho looks at the key, he reflects on the double dungeon incident, a memory he has never forgotten. He realizes that the system is calling him back to the place where it all began, with a newfound sense of confidence. Jinho acknowledges how much he has changed since then. He wonders if everything has been planned from the very beginning, and if someone is waiting for him in the temple. With determination in his eyes, Jinho resolves to face whatever lies ahead, promising that he will come for it soon. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Jinho, who is busy trying to manage the criticism that Jinho is facing online. With fiery determination, he declares that he is going to sue every single one of the trolls. After a long and exhausting day, he finally manages to deal with a band of haters, but it takes him the entire day. As he leans back, Jinho suddenly shows up, thanking Jinho for his hard work. Jinho is shocked to see him appear out of nowhere, and thinks to himself how Jinho always disappears without a trace and then pops up unexpectedly. Jinho asks if everything is alright, and Jinho replies that it is. Noticing Jinho's untidy appearance, Jinho asks why he looks so disheveled. Jinho casually replies that he just completed a raid and adds that they need money to start their guild, showing Jinho a pile of essence stones. Jinho surprised and comments that these are all premium essence stones, and asks if Jinho completed a high-ranking gate. He then praises Jinho, saying that he never ceases to impress him, and remarks that this money will be more than enough to pay for their guild expenses, including employees. Jinho, confused, asks about employees, and Jinho reminds him that they need one more member to form a guild. Jinho suddenly remembers that 3 people are required to officially establish a guild. He remarks that it would be best to find a diligent member, someone someone who is not just a temporary addition. Then, Jinho suddenly shifts the conversation, saying there is one more important matter that needs to be addressed. Jinoo, confused, gives him a questioning look. In a serious tone, Jinho declares that they need to choose a name for their guild. Jinoo, unimpressed, replies that he thought it was going to be something far more important. Jinho, however, emphasizes that choosing a guild name is super important and should not be taken lightly. Jinho begins suggesting names starting with combinations of their last names, such as Sungyu Guild or Yusung Guild. He remarks that Yusung has a better ring to it, but admits he cannot let his name come before Sung. Then he comes up with Wuho Guild, combining 2 syllables from their first names, and even suggests Jinjin Guild, calling it an okayish name. Suddenly, Jinoo suggests Solo Player Guild, explaining that he always hunts solo in raids. This shocks Jinho, who thinks to himself that this must be a joke. He reflects on how he always believed Jinoo was good at everything, and realizes that even Jinoo is human, just like anyone else. Then suddenly someone knocks on the door and Jinho goes to check who it is. To his surprise, he finds Cha Hae-In waiting outside. Jinho is shocked to see her and quickly informs Jinoo. Jinoo, equally surprised, asks what brings her here. Cha Hae-In calmly replies that she wants to join their guild. They all sit down and Jinoo asks again why she is here. Cha Hae-In repeats her response, saying she wants to join their guild. Jinoo, confused, presses further, asking if Chairman Go Gun-hee sent her or if Choi Jong-in kicked her out of the Hunters Guild. Cha Hae-In denies both reasons, saying neither is the case. Still puzzled, Jinoo asks why she wants to join their solo player guild. Cha Hae-In is shocked upon hearing the name of the guild, and Jinoo, noticing her reaction, asks if she has a problem with the name. He adds that both he and the vice guild master agreed on it. Hearing this, Jinho looks at Jinoo in disbelief and seriously asks if Jinoo has already decided on the name without consulting him. Jinoo, with a confused expression, replies that since Jinho didn't object earlier, he assumed it was a sign of approval. Seeing Jinho getting frustrated, Jinoo starts thinking to himself that he needs to calm down as all of this is clouding his judgment. He then looks at Cha Hae-In, who is sitting quietly looking to the side with a blushing face. Jinoo notices that Cha Hae-In's heart is beating fast, her breathing is uneven, and she is avoiding his gaze. He realizes that she is trying her best to keep her composure, but she cannot fool him. Jinoo then states that it has not even been 2 years since she awakened as a hunter, and he is confident that her contract with the Hunters Guild has not ended yet. Cha Hae-In replies that she will have to pay a penalty for breaching the contract, but she has enough money to cover it. Jinoo is shocked to hear that she is willing to pay the penalty just to join his guild. Jinoo then tells her that they do not have enough money to pay her in advance. Cha Hae-In responds that it does not matter to her and that she does not need an advance. Intrigued, Jinoo asks why she is going to such lengths to join his guild when she has nothing to gain. Cha Hae-In, thinking to herself, realizes that Jinoo might think she is crazy if she tells him the actual truth. She starts recalling every encounter they have had in the past. She remembers their first meeting and how she noticed that Jinoo did not have any foul smell unlike other hunters. She recalls how she even tried to gather information about him and how impressed she was when she saw him summon magic beasts during High Orcs raid. Then she thinks back to the time when Jinoo ruined Lee Min-sung's conference and received a lot of hate for it. Yet she found out he was an S-rank hunter who never struck her as a bad person. Cha Hae-In then shifts her focus to the Jeju Island raid, remembering how it was just around the corner. She recalls the sparring match where Jinoo appeared like a burst of color in a grayscale world. She also remembers the moment when she faced the Ant King and how terrified she was. Then she suddenly woke up next to Chairman Go Gun-hee, who was taking her to the hospital. When she asked if Jinoo had helped them, Chairman Go nodded in confirmation. Cha Hae-In blushed upon hearing this and realized it was not a dream. She begins to think about the future, wondering what she would do if she ever found herself in a situation where she could not escape death, and she cannot tell Jinoo the truth that she wants to stay by his side until her last breath. As these thoughts overwhelm her, she starts blushing heavily. Jinoo notices Cha Hae-In blushing and starts wondering what she is up to. He questions if there is something she cannot tell him and why she is staying silent. Observing her red face, he remarks to himself that she is clearly hiding something, and he has no idea what her intentions are, and begins to suspect that she might have been planning this for a long time. Breaking the silence, Jinoo asks again if she is going to answer his question. Cha Hae-In, avoiding the topic, responds with an unrelated statement, saying that she wants to live a comfortable life. Jinho, trying to make sense of her words, suggests that perhaps Choi Jong-in is overworking her and that she might be feeling overwhelmed. Hearing this, Jinoo realizes that Cha Hae-In is only 22 or 23 years old and reflects on the heavy burden she carries as an S-rank top-rank hunter. He recalls how she suffered a serious injury during the Jeju Island raid and begins to feel sorry for her. After a moment of thought, he informs her that there is an entrance test she needs to pass in order to join their guild. Cha Hae-In, surprised, points out that the recruitment posting did not mention anything about a test. Jinwoo calmly explains that it is a new regulation and blames his vice guild master for forgetting to include it. Turning to Jinho, Jinwoo asks him to bring some snacks for their guest. As Jinho leaves, Cha Hae-In looks at Jinwoo and inquires about the nature of the test. Jinwoo, taken aback, wonders if she is truly serious about joining his guild or if she is just being stubborn. After a brief pause, he states that she will need to defeat one of his summoned beasts. Cha Hae-In, unfazed, remarks that Jinwoo is underestimating her and confidently asks which beast she will face. With a confident tone, Jinwoo declares that he will choose the strongest one for her. Without hesitation, Cha Hae-In accepts the challenge. Then Cha Hae-In inquires when the test will take place, and Jinwoo responds that he wants to do it immediately. He decides to use the Hunters Association gym, but quickly realizes it is too far from their current location. Jinwoo wants to use this opportunity to test his shadow exchange skill with another person. Jinwoo stops her as Cha Hae-In begins heading out, explaining that they won't be using the usual way. Jinwoo starts stepping closer to her and mentions that there is an easier method. He then reaches out, pulling her closer, and tells her that she needs to stay close to him. Cha Hae-In blushes deeply as she finds herself standing close to Jinwoo. Then, Jinwoo activates his shadow exchange skill, targeting one of his High Orc shadows. Meanwhile, Jinho returns with the snacks, only to find the High Orc shadow in the room. To his shock, the shadow grabs the snacks and devours the entire plate, leaving Jinho speechless. At the same time, Jinwoo and Cha Hae-In appear in the Hunters Association gym. Cha Hae-In, astonished, and wonders how such a thing is even possible. Jinwoo, observing her reaction, begins analyzing the skill. He confirms to himself that the shadow exchange works as he expected and remarks that it functions similarly to a gate. He notes that the ability to travel with another person is proof of its versatility. Jinwoo reflects on how the skill creates an entrance beneath him and an exit at the designated shadow, allowing them to switch places. Impressed, he considers how the skill could be used to create a gate-like effect even with its 3-hour cooldown, and imagines its potential for traveling to the other side of the world. Jinwoo then suggests they begin the test. Cha Hae-In, realizing she forgot her weapon, mentions it to him. Jinwoo, with a teasing tone, sarcastically asks if her weapon is a pickaxe. Cha Hae-In's face turns red at the comment, and she firmly states that a pickaxe is not her weapon. Jinwoo chuckles, explaining that he was only joking. Cha Hae-In recalls that she can borrow a weapon from the storage room and informs Jinwoo that the gym is equipped with plenty of weapons for training purposes. She selects a long sword from the available options and declares that she is ready. Jinwoo, noticing her choice, questions if she is comfortable with the sword, given that she has no time to get used to it. With a confident tone, Cha Hae-In responds that it does not matter, as magic beasts do not care whether hunters are fully prepared or not. Impressed by her determination, Jinwoo agrees and remarks that he will need to summon a powerful shadow for the test. He acknowledges that Cha Hae-In could easily tear through weaker shadows and decides to summon Igris. Jinwoo introduces Igris and explains that he is the best swordsman among all his shadows. Cha Hae-In, curious, asks how the winner will be determined. Jinwoo states that the fight will continue until she either surrenders or destroys his shadow. As Cha Hae-In prepares for the test, he reflects on his decision of summoning Igris. Although he claims to summon his strongest shadow, he deliberately avoids summoning Beru, knowing it might traumatize her. As Cha Hae-In readies herself for the battle, exuding a strong aura, Jinwoo realizes that Igris also needs a weapon. He asks Cha Hae-In to turn around for a moment and discreetly retrieves the Demon King's longsword from his inventory. The test begins, and Igris starts walking toward Cha Hae-In, carrying the Demon King's longsword before unleashing an attack that shakes the entire gym. However, Cha Hae-In swiftly dodges the strike and counters with her own attack. Jinwoo, observing the battle, notes how fast Cha Hae-In is and reflects that if it were anyone else, even a minor graze from Igris's attack would be fatal. Cha attempts to strike Igris, but he effortlessly blocks her attack. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Chairman Go Gun-hee, who suddenly senses mana waves and turns his attention toward the gym. He remarks to himself that he is certain no one reserved the gym for today. Curious, he contacts one of his staff members and requests them to connect the gym's internal CCTV feed to his office. As the footage appears, he sees both Cha Hae-In and Jinwoo in the gym. With a puzzled expression, he wonders when the two of them became so close and recalls the time when Cha Hae-In asked about Jinwoo and how she blushed. He feels a sense sense of happiness seeing them together, and Chairman instructs his staff member to turn off the security recordings and mark it as an inspection day. The scene shifts back to Jinho, who is surprised to see how Cha Hae-In keeps up with Igris. Then Cha Hae-In questions whether Igris is truly his strongest shadow. She recalls Jinho's earlier claim about summoning his strongest shadow and challenges him to summon the real strongest one. Jinho hesitates, concerned for her safety, and warns her that she might get hurt. Cha Hae-In insists that she does not care and demands a rematch, referring to the Ant King. Jinho is taken aback, realizing that she already knows about Beru. Cha Hae-In explains further, revealing that she saw the footage of the Jeju Island raid. Understanding her determination, Jinho reluctantly summons Beru. Even as Beru appears, Jinho remains worried and asks once more if she is truly okay with fighting him. Jinho remarks that once a shadow is extracted, it becomes weaker than when it was alive. He explains that Beru was created solely for the purpose of killing hunters, and if he goes all out, Cha Hae-In might not be able to keep up. Beru, standing ready, asks what he should do about the opponent. Jinho commands him not to hurt her and to simply defeat her. Following the command, Beru lets out a deafening roar, shattering all the lights in the gym. The fierce waves of his roar shock Cha Hae-In and wonders how Jinho is able to fight such a monster. As Beru brings out his claws, Jinho immediately commands him to retract them, warning that he will make Beru's life miserable if he hurts her. Beru, hearing this, obeys with an innocent expression. Cha Hae-In, seeing this moment of distraction, seizes the opportunity to attack. However, to her shock, Beru suddenly appears behind her, using the same move he had used during the Jeju Island raid. Cha Hae-In, determined not to fall for the same trick again, swings her sword to attack Beru, declaring that she won't be fooled twice. But Beru effortlessly stops her full-force attack with a single hand. He calmly remarks that his king has given him a simple command to defeat his opponent without causing harm, and decides to demonstrate the vast difference in their powers. Cha Hae-In launches multiple attacks at Beru, but he dodges every single one with ease. Finally, Beru stops one of her strikes, and Cha Hae-In, still confident, declares that she is not done yet. She attempts to take off his head with another attack, but Beru dodges it again, leaving her stunned. Cha Hae-In remarks in disbelief at how Beru is able to dodge all her attacks at such close range without even moving much. Beru then locks eyes with her and lets out a deafening roar. The sheer force of the roar causes her to stagger backward, overwhelmed by its intensity. Jinho, observing the fight, remarks that the winner has already been decided. He asks Cha Hae-In if she is satisfied, but to his surprise, she responds with unwavering determination, saying that she still wants to continue fighting. Jinho is shocked by her willpower and reflects that he never expected her to be so reckless, and still continues to fight even after realizing the vast difference in their strength. He notes how Beru is different from his other shadows. He is not only intelligent, but also a killing machine at heart. Jinho observes how Beru is suppressing his natural thirst to kill Cha Hae-In and wonders if she is trying to aim for Beru's weak spot. He silently hopes that she does not make any misstep. Seeing Cha Hae-In's determination not to give up angers Beru. He remarks that a single glance is all it takes for living creatures to recognize whether they are predator or prey, and declares that a prey is standing against its predator, referring to Cha Hae-In as prey. Beru attempts to attack Cha Hae-In with his claws, but she manages to dodge it and uses her skill sword dance to try and slash him. Beru effortlessly stops her attack and breaks her sword. Cha Hae-In realizes that she has only one chance left and remarks to herself that she does not have enough mana to use, but she can still activate her Sword of Light skill. With this skill, she can transform her sword into pure light and significantly increase its cutting power. Cha Hae-In activates her Sword of Light skill and pierces Beru on his shoulder, and Jinho is shocked seeing this. For a brief moment, a simple and primal command flashes through Beru's mind. It is the command given to him by his queen upon his birth to annihilate the enemy. Consumed by this instinct, Beru decides to kill Cha Hae-In. Beru begins to lose control, and Cha Hae-In, sensing the danger, completely steps back. Jinho immediately commands Beru to stop the match, but Beru ignores the command and continues to attack Cha Hae-In. Jinho rushes to her rescue and stops Beru's attack. He commands Beru again to stop attacking her. This time, Beru regains his senses, gives an innocent look, and kneels before Jinho, begging for mercy. Jinho turns to Cha Hae-In and asks if she is okay. Noticing her silence, he remarks that she is not saying anything. After a moment of hesitation, Jinho asks with doubt in his voice if she is interested in him. This question snaps Cha Hae-In back to her senses. Jinho observes her reaction and begins to think that she might not be interested in him, and wonders what Cha Hae-In is up to. Cha Hae-In gently responds that she thinks she is interested in him while making a cute and blushy face. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Federal Bureau of Hunters, where Michael Connor and Selner are apologizing to director David Brennan for their failure to recruit Jinwoo. David informs them that he is not looking for an apology and instead asks what happened. Connor explains that based on Selner's observations that Jinwoo is one of the kings. Upon hearing this, David questions if Sung Jinwoo is as powerful as a national-level hunter. Selner begins to explain that awakened beings draw their powers from a place called the Other Side, and that she has the ability to sense the connection between the two parties. She elaborates that when the force from the other side is extremely intense, some awakened individuals appear as streaks of blinding light, and she refers to these special beings as kings. Selner then describes Jinwoo's case and starts trembling as she recalls her experience. She explains that she could not see any connection in Jinwoo's case, and that the moment she looked into his eyes, all she could see was darkness staring back at her. She calls Jinwoo darkness itself, and David asks if she is implying that Jinwoo is an evil being. Selner clarifies that she is not categorizing him as good or evil, but is simply explaining where his powers originate. She further adds that unlike other awakened beings, Jinwoo is not drawing power from the other side, but is instead using his own strength, which means there are no limitations to his powers. Connor also remarks that Jinwoo's power has no limits, and Selner nods in agreement. David begins to leave and thanks Selner for her time. Connor asks where the director is headed, and David replies that he is going to basement level 24 and asks Connor to accompany him. They both head to level 24, and as they walk, David emphasizes that they need to find another way to recruit Jinwoo since Selner's plan has failed. He then asks Connor if he remembers when the first S-rank gate opened. Connor replies that he does and says he could never forget the most catastrophic dungeon break in history, which devastated the entire West Coast area. David continues by explaining how they recruited the strongest hunters by offering them huge rewards, and how those who survived became national-level hunters with authority equal to that of a nation. David further elaborates that the magic beast in that S-rank dungeon was the most powerful dragon with inextinguishable flames that single-handedly obliterated hundreds of top-ranking hunters. He then asks Connor if he would believe him if he says that there is a silver lining to that tragedy. Then they reached a top-secret room in the facility, and David opens the door. Inside, they see the rune stone from Kamish, and David remarks that it has been 8 years since the raid, and that there has been no mage-type national-level hunter capable of summoning the beast. He mentions that the rune stone has been waiting for its rightful owner in this cold basement for a long time, and he concludes by stating that Kamish will be a valuable gift for their country. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Jinwoo's apartment, where he is deep in thought about Cha Hae-In's interest in him. He stares at himself in the mirror and evaluates his appearance. He is convinced that after his reawakening, he has grown a few inches taller and developed a better physique, but beyond that, he considers himself just an average guy. He wonders if his improved looks are a result of his ability, the will to recover, which heals any damage to his body and also clear his skin and make him appear more radiant. To confirm his suspicions, he decides to get a second opinion. Jinwoo turns to Jinah and asks how she would rate him. Jinah looks at him with confusion and questions what exactly he means. He clarifies that he is asking about his level of attractiveness. Jinah frowns and with an annoyed tone questions where he is getting this sudden confidence from, and bluntly adds that to her, he just looks like a bum. Jinwoo feels frustrated by her response and grabs her head in an attempt to whack her, while Jinah tries to escape by kicking him with her leg. Jinwoo sarcastically thanks her for her brutally honest opinion and warns her to keep her leg to herself or risk breaking it since he has the body of an S-rank hunter. He then teases her by questioning how someone with what he calls a bird brain manages to get through school. Jinah, still kicking him, retorts that she is at the top of her class. Jinwoo smirks and comments that she is only at the top when it comes to mock exams. Jinwoo shifts the conversation and informs Jinah that he is planning to open a new guild. Jinah remarks that if everything goes well, he will become the big boss. While responding to him, Jinah is also busy texting her close friend and classmate Han Songyi. She types that Jinwoo just asked her if he is attractive and jokes that he has finally lost his mind. Jinwoo then seeks her opinion on the guild name Solo Player. Jinah makes a face of disapproval and questions why he would choose such a name. Jinwoo wonders if the name sounds strange, and Jinah explains that since he uses his summoned beasts to complete raids, he is technically not a solo player. Jinwoo considers her explanation and agrees with her reasoning. He then asks what she thinks the guild should be called. Jinah suggests the name Ahjin Guild and explains that the first syllable Ah means I, and the second syllable Jin means to go forward in Chinese. She adds that another reason for choosing the name is that her name can be read backward in it. She looks at Jinwoo and asks for his thoughts on the name. Jinwoo responds that it is not bad. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Cha Hae-In's house, where she is lost in thought about her recent interaction with Jinwoo. She recalls how she essentially confessed her feelings to him and feels embarrassed. She reflects on how Jinwoo rejected her reasoning for joining his guild by saying that not joining her guild was the best option. She worries that Jinwoo might think she is crazy. Despite her concerns, Cha Hae-In gathers her resolve and justifies her feelings by reminding herself that Jinwoo saved her life, and she convinces herself that it is only natural for her to be interested in him. Suddenly, her thoughts shift, and she decides that it is not okay. She realizes that she survived thanks to Min Byung-Gu's abilities, and not solely because of Jinwoo. She then remembers her encounter with Min Byung-Gu Shadow and how he told her to warn Jinwoo to be cautious of the powers that lie within him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Knights Guild Hunters, where Yoontae informs Jongsu about a new gate that opened yesterday. He explains that they have not been able to get the entry permit for it, as it is a high-ranking gate. Jongsu asks if the gate is an S rank, and Yoontae clarifies that it is a top-tier A-rank gate. Jongsu remarks that they could end up dead if they are not careful, since they do not have the manpower to form a strike squad for an A-rank gate. That if they fail to clear the gate, people might start questioning their ability to maintain their reputation as one of the 5 major guilds. Jongsu further comments that to the public, all rank gates seem the same except for S-rank gates. Yoontae then warns that the Fame Guild might take advantage of this opportunity if they pass on the gate. This angers Jongsu, who questions if Yoontae is suggesting they hand over the gate to Dongwook when it appeared right in front of their yard. Yoontae nervously replies that he is only pointing out the possibility. Jongsu remarks that their A-rank hunters are not inferior to those of any other major guild in terms of numbers and capability. However, he admits that their only drawback is the lack of an S-rank hunter in their guild. Jung Yerin, an A-rank healer, suggests forming an alliance with another guild. Jongsu questions if other guilds would even agree to form an alliance. Yerim then proposes forming an alliance with an individual rather than a guild. Jongsu dismisses the idea by stating that one individual would not make a difference for a top-tier A-rank gate. Suddenly, he remembers Sung Jinwoo and mentions that forming an alliance with another guild might harm their reputation, but joining forces with Sung Jinwoo would give them a high chance of clearing the gate while also earning public acknowledgement. He then asks what Jinwoo has been up to recently. Yoontae replies that Jinwoo recently cleared a gate in the middle of the highway and has been keeping a low profile. He asks if he should get Jinwoo's contact information, but Jongsu decides it would be better to visit him directly. The scene shifts to Jinwoo in his new guild office, where he suggests the name Ahjin Guild as their official guild name. Jinho happily comments that the name is wonderful and agrees to make it official, while thinking to himself that any name is fine as long as it is not solo player guild. Jinwoo mentions that everything is settled to form their guild except for the last founding member. Jinho asks about Cha Hae-In, and Jinwoo comments that she is not the right fit for their guild. Jinho is shocked to hear this and thinks to himself that Cha Hae-In is an S-rank hunter with great performance records and stunning looks. He wonders who could possibly be a better candidate than her and asks Jinwoo what kind of candidate he is looking for. Jinwoo explains that he is looking for someone with a hunter's license who has no interest in joining a guild but is a trustworthy person. Jinho starts thinking if he knows anyone with these qualities, and then suddenly someone knocks on their door. Jinho goes to check and wonders if it is Cha Hae-In again, but instead finds Jongsu and his guild members. Their unexpected visit confuses both Jinwoo and Jinho. They all sit down and Jongsu shows footage of a massive gate. He explains that although the size of the gate is not relative to its rank, the amount of mana coming from it is enormous. Jinwoo asks if the gate is an S rank, and Jongsu replies that it is not, but it is the largest gate ever opened in Busan City. Hearing the city name, Jinwoo remembers Lee Juhee and thinks about asking her to treat him to sashimi. Jongsu continues by explaining that the association is refusing to grant them permission to clear the gate since their guild does not have any S-rank hunters. He adds that the association might reconsider if Jinwoo joins their guild and promises to compensate him generously. Yerim, meanwhile, thinks to herself and wonders if she can get Jinwoo's autograph. Then Jongsu further explains that when an S-rank hunter joins a raid, they typically receive a 10% share of the profits, but he is willing to offer 20%. Jinwoo responds that he wants a 50% share and adds that he will only team up with them if they treat him as a guild and not just an individual hunter, and reveals that he is in the process of forming the Ahjin Guild. Jongsu hesitantly offers 40% instead, but Jinwoo firmly states that he is not negotiating. Jongsu realizes that Jinwoo is not a pushover despite his young age and requests that Jinwoo take care of the dungeon boss in return. Jinwoo agrees to the request, and Jongsu informs him that the gate has been open for a while and suggests starting the raid tomorrow. He offers offers Jinwoo a ride to Busan to join them. However, Jinwoo declines the offer, saying that he has plans tonight, but assures them that he will see them tomorrow and promises not to be late. As they prepare to leave, Yoontae notices Jinwoo's shadow moving and points it out to Jongsu. Jongsu dismisses it and questions if Yoontae is drunk. Suddenly, Jinwoo receives a call from an unknown number and excuses himself to answer it. To his surprise, it is his mother, and Jinwoo asks if she got a new phone, and his mother confirms it, saying that she called just to hear his voice. She asks if he is busy, and Jinwoo replies that he is not and expresses his happiness that she called. He suggests having dinner together that evening, and his mother agrees. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the next day at the top-tier A-rank gate in Busan, where all the Knights Guild members are waiting for Jinwoo. Jongsu begins to regret not insisting that Jinwoo come with them and worries that he might not show up. He hopes that Jinwoo will not be late as they need to start the raid in 5 minutes. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Jinwoo, who is looking at the cloudy sky and hoping that Jinah remembered to take her umbrella. Jinwoo decides it is time to head to the gate and uses his shadow exchange skill. The scene then shifts to a school where 3 students are complaining about how their teacher is making them do all the hard work. While searching for a plaster in one of the storage rooms, they notice that the room is dusty and realize it has not been used for the entire semester. To their shock, they discover a gate nearby and begin to panic. One of the students tries to calm the others by saying that gates usually take about a week to open and only hunters can enter them. Another student recalls that the room has been neglected for the entire semester and remarks that the gate might open at any moment. Suddenly, the gate cracks open and a magic beast emerges, grabbing one of the students by the head. The student cries out for help, but the magic beast squeezes his head and kills him instantly. The magic beasts brutally kill the remaining students in the school. It is explained that these beasts are natural-born predators who, even without high intelligence, far surpass humans in their ability to track and hunt prey. The 2 predators become excited after smelling the flesh and blood, but suppress their instincts to focus on their mission. They had stayed hidden in the dark for an entire week before activating their 6th sense to search for prey, referring to humans as prey. One of the orcs observes that the structure of the school resembles a castle with levels above them and decides to begin their hunt. He commands his companion to gather the rest of their brothers. Their first objective is to hunt all the humans in the school to strengthen their position. After that, they plan to focus on their real hunt. One of the orcs heads toward a group of students, and before they can react, slashes them down mercilessly. The scene then shifts to the high A-rank gate, where Jinwoo arrives and comments that the gate is even larger than it appeared in the footage he saw. There are 2 additional teams present, a mining team and a hauling team, along with the strike squad, consisting of 13 A-rank hunters and 20 B-rank hunters. Jinwoo is taken aback by the number of A-rank hunters in the Knights Guild and remarks that it is expected from a guild with the highest number of A-rank hunters. The Knights Guild hunters become excited upon seeing Jinwoo and begin praising him for his performance during the Jeju Island raid. One of them asks how he is able to summon dark soldiers, or if he should call them summoned beasts. Jinwoo is surprised by their enthusiasm as they charge toward him, but Jung Yerim steps in and stops them, asking them not to annoy Jinwoo. She introduces herself as Jung Yerim, the main healer of the Knights Guild Elite Strike Squad, and adds that since Jinwoo is the leader, they should get along well. Jinwoo, confused by being called the leader, asks Jongsu if he did not tell them who the actual leader is. Jongsu explains that he will be leading today's raid. After hearing this, the hunters make irritated faces and question why Jongsu is the leader again when they have Jinwoo. Jongsu responds that Jinwoo will take charge of the backline to ensure everyone's safety. One of the hunters confidently questions why they even need someone to protect them and asks Jinwoo if they look like a weak squad to him. Everyone is stunned by his boldness in speaking to Jinwoo, and Jongsu smirks at the gutsy nature of his team and remarks that they might be out of line, but that is how things are done in their guild. Jinwoo responds that they seem very confident. Jongsu, noticing the time, decides to begin the raid. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Hunters Association, where an emergency call comes in. The caller, speaking in a shaky voice, reports that there are monsters everywhere in her school. The answerer wonders if there has been a dungeon break and asks where she is calling from. The caller explains that she is hiding in the bathroom and looks terrified with blood all over her. She adds that her friend is dead. The answerer asks how many monsters there are and if any are nearby. The caller responds that she does not know and all she can hear are screams. In an effort to calm her down, the answerer assures her that hunters are on their way and urges her not to lose hope. The caller asks if she will really be okay, and the answerer asks if she knows what type of magic beasts they are. The caller explains that she has seen them on TV before, but cannot not remember their name. The answerer asks her to describe them, and the caller describes them as having green skin. Hearing this shocks the answerer, who realizes they are orcs. The answerer urgently tells her to get out immediately, explaining that orcs can smell their prey. Suddenly, the caller begins screaming that she does not want to die and begs for help. The answerer hears her cries and is shaken by the sound. The rest of the students in the school attempt to escape, and one of them worries about her friend, but another reassures her that the hunters will handle the situation and urges her to run. The orcs continue their rampage, killing students. One of the orcs expresses frustration that half of the students have already escaped, but the other reassures him that there are still many left. They confirm that they have blocked the exits and decide to search another floor to kill the remaining students. The orcs completely wreck the entire school, leaving destruction in their wake. In one of the rooms, the students desperately attempt to strengthen their defense by stacking all the chairs against the door. Everyone is visibly shaking as they prepare to fight back. Suddenly, the orcs break through the door, which shocks the students. One of the orcs begins walking toward them, holding a blade covered in blood. One of the students panics and attempts to escape through another door, but to his surprise, another orc appears and slashes him down mercilessly. One of the orcs remarks that they can sense a human with a huge amount of mana in them and decides to kill that person first. Jinah and her friend are trembling as they witness the chaos and destruction around them. Jinah begins thinking about Jinwoo, hoping for his help in this terrifying situation. Then Han Songyi reveals that she is also an awakened being, even though she is only an E rank. Jinah tries to stop her from saying anything further. One of the orcs asks if Songyi is the human he was referring to, but the other orc responds with a no and mentions that he senses a more powerful force coming from the human next to her. They realize the smell is coming from Jinah and decide to kill her. The orc swings his weapon, and both Jinah and Songya close their eyes, trembling in fear. To their surprise, a high orc suddenly appears and stops the attack. Jinah asks if Jinwoo sent them, and then the high orc delivers a powerful punch to the attacking orc, sending it crashing outside the building. This shocks the other orc, who is stunned by the high orc's brute strength. A total of 3 high orcs appear and surround Jinah to ensure no one attacks her. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Jongsu and the Knights Guild raid team. Jongsu spots a twin-headed ogre and immediately warns everyone. The ogre charges at them with full force, but Jongsu blocks the attack using his shield skill, which creates shockwaves throughout the dungeon. Jongsu quickly instructs Yuntae to attack, and Yuntae dashes forward and slashes both of the ogre's eyes. The fighters leap at the ogre and slash both of its hands, while the mage-type hunters join in and burn it down. Jongsu commands the team to regroup for a minute. As he observes the ogre, he is shocked and admits that he did not expect such a powerful beast right at the start. He remarks that things are not looking good and asks Jinwoo if he knows the other name for twin-headed ogres. Jinwoo replies that they are called gravekeepers, and Jongsu explains that gravekeepers are as powerful as dungeon bosses and warns that encountering an ogre at the start likely means they will face an army of the undead as well. Yuntae notices the arm of the undead approaching and confirms that Jongsu is right. He asks what they should do about the undead and whether they should attack. To their surprise, the undead begin backing off, which makes them wonder if something is wrong and if the undead are being chased by something. Jinwoo watches all of this unimpressed and starts thinking that he came with high expectations since it is a high A rank gate. Suddenly, he senses that something is wrong and informs Jongsu that he has an urgent matter to take care of and must leave immediately. Jongsu, hearing this, expresses concern that they might find themselves in danger without Jinwoo's support. Jinwoo reassures him that he will send someone as reliable as himself and promises to take care of all the hunters. Then Jinwoo summons Beru, and the sight of him shocks everyone. The hunters immediately recognize Beru and ask if he is the Ant King from the Jeju Island raid. Jinwoo understands that Beru needs no introduction and informs the team that Beru will take his place. He commands Beru to protect all the humans and to kill all the beasts. Beru lets out a powerful roar that sends waves throughout the dungeon. One of the hunters nervously remarks that they now have to raid with Beru, while another hunter replies that she could not believe that he runs his mouth earlier in front of Jinwoo. Jinwoo then summons 20 more ants to aid the team. Jongsu becomes worried and asks if Jinwoo plans to leave after setting all his shadows loose. Jinwoo gives them a cold and piercing gaze and states that he can dismiss the shadows before leaving, but warns that doing so might not work in their favor. The hunters are shocked by Jinwoo's commanding presence and quickly agree with him. Jinwoo attempts to use his shadow exchange skill, but realizes it is still under its 3-hour cooldown period. Without hesitation, he starts running toward the gate, and seeing this, Jongsu remarks that Jinwoo has actually left, and Yuntae asks what they should do next. Jongsu replies that he needs a moment to think about their next move. As Jinwoo heads out, he keeps on sensing something from the shadows he left with Jinah. He feels a growing sense of unease and worries that something is wrong. While on his way, Jinwoo encounters encounters a group of undead, which angers him, and he brings out his S-rank daggers and prepares to attack them. To his surprise, the undead kneel before him. Jinwoo wonders if the reason they are kneeling is because he is a high-class necromancer with the ability to command the dead. Without wasting time, he summons Kaisel, and they both head toward the exit. Everyone is shocked to see Jinwoo with Kaisel, and Jinwoo commands Kaisel to take him to his sister as quickly as possible. He activates his Monarch's domain skill to increase Kaisel's speed, as this skill enhances the stats of his shadows by 50%. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the school, where Great Orcs and High Orcs are engaged in a fierce battle. One of the High Orcs slashes a Great Orc, and this shocks all the students. The High Orc then grabs the Great Orc by the head and clenches it with immense force, while the rest of the High Orcs smash the remaining Great Orcs to the ground. Seeing this, the students begin to wonder if the High Orcs are there to protect them. Jinah asks if Jinwoo is present and starts looking for him, but one of the High Orcs blocks her path and warns her about the danger posed by the Great Orcs. The scene shifts to the dungeon boss of the Great Orcs, where one of the orcs informs him that the final ban has been lifted. The dungeon boss introduces himself as Groctor, the chief of the Red Blade tribe, and declares that nothing can stop him. Another orc reports to Groctor that the High Orcs are interfering and stopping their forces. Groctor asks how many High Orcs there are, and the orc responds that there are 3 High Orcs helping the humans. Hearing this enrages Groctor, who calls his Great Orcs pathetic for being unable to handle just 3 High Orcs. He decides to take the lead himself, grabs his sword, and announces to his tribe that it is time to slaughter their enemies. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the High Rank dungeon, where all the ant shadows are displaying aggressive behavior. This worries the guild hunters, who fear that the ants might turn hostile toward them. Jong-soo begins thinking to himself that they cannot afford to give up now. He worries that the reporters outside the dungeon might exploit their failure, and decides that they cannot stop here just because of the summoned beast. To his surprise, Beru suddenly appears right in front of him, which scares him. Jong-soo nervously tells the team to continue the raid. Beru stares at Jong-soo with an intimidating gaze, and Jong-soo, visibly sweating, requests Beru to start the raid. Then Beru leaps away in an instant and returns just as quickly. Jong-soo stumbles and falls to the ground as Beru suddenly appears out of nowhere. Beru throws the head of a magic beast at Jong-soo's feet, and then turns away to continue his march toward the boss, with the ant shadows following him. 2 guild members rush to Jong-soo and check if he is alright. Jong-soo assures them that he is fine and directs their attention to the head of the magic beast. They examine it and realize it is the head of a Death Knight, which is one of the highest ranking beasts. They are stunned to understand that Beru killed it in mere seconds. Jong-soo struggles to believe the sheer strength of Beru, but smirks as he considers the value of the Essence Stone from such a powerful beast. He asks if anyone wants to back out, but to his surprise, everyone has already started moving toward the boss, leaving him behind. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to Jinah's school, where Groctor arrives to confront the High Orcs. The Great Orcs rally behind Groctor and ready to support him. Groctor addresses the High Orcs, explaining that orc tattoos symbolize victory in battle and represent the number of foes a warrior has slain. Observing the tattoos on the High Orcs, he notes that they have already claimed a few lives, but mocks them, saying that is the best they can do. Groctor and the High Orcs engage in battle, and as the fight progresses, Groctor watches the High Orcs with disdain and remarks that the fight is dull. He swings his sword at one of the High Orcs, but to his surprise, the orc blocks the attack. Groctor acknowledges that they are not bad, but declares that it is still not good enough and slashes them down. The High Orcs begin regenerating, and Groctor quickly realizes they are under a spell. He understands that no matter how many times he cuts them down, they will keep regenerating. Frustrated, he thinks to himself that he could kill hundreds of them if necessary. Suddenly, a command echoes in his mind, urging him to kill the humans. He notices that the command is growing stronger and more persistent with each passing moment. Determined to end the fight quickly, he decides to target the sorcerer controlling the High Orcs. Groctor orders his orcs to capture her, and then he explains to his forces that the High Orcs are powerless while regenerating, and instructs them to keep attacking continuously to restrict their movements. The Great Orcs begin stabbing and slashing the High Orcs relentlessly. Groctor advances toward Jinah, grabs her by the head, and declares that he can sense magical powers emanating from her. He decides to kill her, but before he can act, he senses a powerful presence approaching. Trembling, he drops Jinah to the ground, and Songyi rushes to Jinah's side to check if she is alright. Groctor looks outside and sees Kaisel heading toward him. Overwhelmed by fear, he commands his forces to retreat. Kaisel breaks into the school, and Jinwoo appears walking toward Jinah. He gently pats her head and reassures her that she is safe. Groctor, still in shock from witnessing Kaisel's enormous strength, stands frozen. Jinwoo, seeing his sister in such a state, becomes visibly angry. Groctor begins to introduce himself as the chief of the Red Blade tribe, but before he can finish, Jinwoo interrupts him with a commanding tone, telling him to shut up and wait there, and an overwhelming aura surrounds Jinwoo as he confronts Groctor. Jinwoo then checks on all the students to see if they are okay and also looks at Songyi. She responds that she is fine, but thinks to herself that there is something terrifying about Jinwoo. Jinah starts crying, and this sight fuels Jinwoo's anger even more. He summons Igris and instructs him to take care of Jinah. He then summons a few shadows to escort the rest of the students downstairs safely. Groctor watches Jinwoo summoning shadows so casually and becomes terrified and attempts to flee, but Jinwoo warns him not to move. Using Kaizel, Jinwoo gets the students out of the building, and Groctor finally realizes that Jinwoo is the one summoning the immortal High Orcs. He demands to know who Jinwoo is and how he can speak their language. Jinwoo silently begins walking toward, and Groctor understands that Jinwoo will not answer and commands his Great Orcs to attack. One of the High Orcs tries to strike Jinwoo, but before it can land a blow, Jinwoo grabs its hand and crushes it. The High Orc screams in pain as Jinwoo flips it and slams it to the ground, and then uses his leg to crush the orc further. Two more orcs charge at him, but Jinwoo uses his commander's touch to make them whomp first, then clench, and finally finishes them by cracking them. The brutal display leaves the remaining orcs visibly shaken, but they still charge at Jinwoo. He kills all of them instantly in a matter of seconds, and Groctor is horrified by witnessing his speed. Jinwoo uses his commander's touch to grab Groctor by the head and slams him into the wall. Looking around at the corpses of the students, Jinwoo demands to know why Groctor is killing humans. Groctor explains that he hears voices in his head commanding him to kill humans. Jinwoo then asks if Groctor hears any voices telling him to kill him. Seeing Jinwoo in this state, Groctor begins begging for his life. Jinwoo repeats his question, and Groctor continues pleading for forgiveness. Jinwoo remarks that Groctor does not even consider him human and agrees to forgive him, but adds that he will not let him go easily, and Jinwoo then kills Groctor. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the high-rank A-Gate, where Yerim is arguing with an ant shadow about the value of the undead and insists that it should not eat them, especially the vampires. The ant shadow ignores her, then slashes her shoulder and eats the vampire while giving her a death stare. Beru steps in and stops the ant shadow, then uses his healing magic, which he gets from Min Byung-Gu, to heal Yerim. Yerim is left wondering how a summoned beast is better at healing than she is. After this, they all head toward the dungeon boss, and they open the entrance and find the Arch-Lich waiting for them, along with 10 Death Knights. The sight of the Arch-Lich terrifies the Night Guild members. Jiangsu begins recalling how the Arch-Lich annihilated the Dragon Guild, which is one of the major Chinese guilds, and caused a dungeon break, and how Lu Zhigang saves China from a catastrophic outcome. Jiangsu starts worrying about how a team of rank hunters can possibly fight the Arch-Lich. Yuntae asks what they should do next, and they notice an army of undead heading toward them. Jiangsu warns everyone that the undead not eaten by the ants have come back to life, and commands the team to block the door and uses Sacred Shield technique to hold them off. Jiangsu realizes that they are running out of options and regrets not having Jinwoo on their side. Yerim informs him that she can only hold the shield for 5 more minutes, and suddenly Beru appears to their aid. The Arch-Lich notices the shadows and realizes they are part of the king's personal army. He questions Beru about why the king's army is attacking them, and Beru responds stating that they are chosen by the king, but the undead are not. The Arch-Lich insists that it is impossible and demands to speak to the king immediately. Beru ignores his request, lunges forward, and attacks the Arch-Lich, declaring that he has a lot to say for someone who is about to die. Then Beru pulls out the Arch-Lich's green heart and crushes it, and as the dungeon boss is defeated, all the undead collapse as well. The Night Guild hunters are left in disbelief that Beru defeated the Arch-Lich with a single punch. Beru lets out a powerful roar, and Jiangsu remarks that he cannot believe Beru is this strong. Yuntae mentions that with soldiers like these, Jinwoo does not even need to step inside the gate and could clear the entire dungeon just by using them. Jiangsu begins to think that commanding all the summoned beasts might deplete Jinwoo's mana, but judging by their strength, even if Jinwoo can summon only half of them, he is more powerful than a major guild. Yuntae suggests that they should acquire Jinwoo's guild, and Jiangsu disagrees with the word acquire and suggests calling it an alliance between the world's finest hunter and the Knights Guild, which sounds more respectable. Yuntae questions if Jiangsu is sure about this, since Jinwoo might not even need their help to clear dungeons. Jiangsu explains that Jinwoo cannot raid a dungeon without meeting the minimum hunter requirement, no matter who he is, and reminds Yuntae that no one is exempt from this rule. Yuntae agrees and happily points out that Jinwoo can increase their fighting power while they provide him with the minimum number of hunters, making it a win-win situation for both sides. Yuntae jokes that they will be raiding on Jinwoo's coattails, but Jiangsu dismisses the comment as nonsense and explains that they simply have the right connections. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to outside the school, where association members are collecting the bodies of students and trying to control the situation. A heartbroken mother searches for her son and pleads to see what happened to him with her own eyes. They bring her son's body body, and she breaks down crying as she sees him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Chairman Go Gunhee and Jinwoo. The chairman informs Jinwoo that all 213 students who escaped are safe and that they found another 10 survivors in the building. He laments that they should have seen this tragedy coming and shows Jinwoo data on his phone. The chairman explains that the graph shows a spike in gate appearances in Seoul over the last 6 months and that the same trend is happening worldwide. He adds that this is not the only strange phenomenon, as there are also more awakened beings appearing. He theorizes that it seems like world is trying to maintain balance. Jinwoo listens and realizes that a significant change is happening. He asks why the chairman wanted to meet him, and Chairman Go hands him official documents containing requests from major countries to meet with him. He adds that he is sure some have already contacted Jinwoo through unofficial channels referring to Federal Bureau. He explains that the Hunters Association cannot stop them and can only protect Jinwoo's personal information based on his request. He tells Jinwoo that it is up to him whether he wants to meet them, but expresses concern that if Jinwoo leaves Korea, the country might not be able to keep up with the changes. The chairman drops Jinwoo off at the hospital where Jinah is being treated. Before leaving, he requests Jinwoo to stay in Korea and promises to provide him with all the resources he can. He worries that the country has already lost 3 S-rank hunters out of 10 and that the association cannot afford to lose more, and assures Jinwoo that he will do whatever is necessary. Jinwoo responds by requesting permission to enter high-ranking gates alone, and the chairman asks for confirmation that Jinwoo is asking to remove the minimum hunter requirement, and Jinwoo confirms. Chairman Go explains that the minimum hunter requirement exists to ensure the safety of hunters and prevent unnecessary deaths. Suddenly, the chairman realizes that Jinwoo opened a new guild solely for this purpose and asks him about it, and Jinwoo admits that it is true. Jinwoo asks if he is asking for too much, and the chairman replies that it will be difficult but not impossible and tells Jinwoo to leave it to him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Jinho, who calls Soohyun to ask if she is interested in joining his guild. He adds that she does not have to do any work and suggests she join them instead of continuing as an ambassador for his father's guild. Soohyun questions why he is suddenly talking about a guild and asks if he knows about Jinhee's return. Jinho responds that he knows since she is his older sister and once again requests Soohyun to join their guild as they need one more founding member. Soohyun teases him by asking if he is inviting her to join a guild that does not even exist yet and wonders if he is sure he is not being scammed. Jinho starts laughing and asks if she knows who the so-called shady guy is and tells her to come to their guild office. Soohyun shows up at their office and Jinho introduces her to Jinwoo as a certified A-rank hunter. She excitedly expresses her disbelief that she is meeting Jinwoo in person. Jinho makes a strange face and remarks that she is the real celebrity here. Jinwoo looks at her and wonders if she is truly an A-rank hunter. Soohyun explains her excitement about meeting Jinwoo by recalling how he ruined Lee Min-sung's conference and then disappeared afterward. Jinwoo listens to her explanation and remarks that this is the reason she is so thrilled. As Jinwoo sits down, he starts thinking about how Jinho is a D-rank hunter, while his cousin Soohyun is an A-rank hunter. He wonders if genetics play a role in the awakening process and considers that there are cases where both siblings are awakened and that his father is also a hunter. Jinwoo then asks Soohyun if Jinho explained everything to her, and Soohyun confirms that he did and mentions how they are looking for another founding member. Jinwoo warns her that joining their guild might cause some problems and asks if she is okay with that. She responds that it is still better than working for Yoo Jin-sung. Jinwoo, with a puzzled face, asks about Yoo Jin-sung, and Jinho reminds him that Jin-sung is his older brother. Jinwoo recalls if it is the one with the bad personality, and hearing this, Soohyun comments that it seems Jin-sung has already made a name for himself. Then Soohyun asks if it is okay to post a selfie with Jinwoo on social media. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the National Assembly, where a senator is furious about the decision to recognize summoned beasts as members of a strike squad. He calls the decision nonsense and questions if Chairman Go Gunhee has lost his mind. The senator argues that regulations were put in place as soon as Jinwoo established his guild and accuses the association of giving him preferential treatment. He remarks that the Hunters Association exists for the benefit of all hunters and not just for Sung Jinwoo, and demands an explanation from Chairman Go. Chairman Go calmly agrees with everything the senator points out and boldly states that it is indeed preferential treatment. His commanding tone causes the room to erupt into whispers. Chairman Go then poses a question to the assembly and asks them to imagine a scenario where a dungeon break occurs, and they have 2 options. They can either send a team of 20 A-rank hunters or send Sung Jinwoo alone. He asks which team they would choose to deploy if they could only send one, and the room falls silent as the weight of the question sinks in. Chairman Go continues by sarcastically pointing out that the senator recently moved near the Hunters Guild and asks the senator why he chose to move to such an expensive neighborhood. The senator begins sweating and stammers that it is an unrelated matter. Chairman Go speculates that the senator moved for safety and explains that the same reasoning reasoning applies to everyone else in the country. He emphasizes that anyone with the means would want to live somewhere safe. Chairman Go then boldly addresses all the members and reminds them that guilds from around the world are desperate to recruit Jinwoo and warns that Jinwoo might leave the country if they fail to cooperate with him. He reminds them of how Dongsu left for another country and urges them not to repeat the same mistake. He pleads with them to consider who will save their lives when another S-rank gate appears in South Korea. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Cha Hae-In, who is looking at a picture of Jinwoo with Soohyun and Jinho. Her hands begin trembling as she stares at the image of Jinwoo with another woman. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Jinwoo and Jinho, who are preparing to enter their first gate after establishing the guild. Jinho is stunned by the enormous size of the gate and remarks that he has never seen a gate this massive before. Jinwoo hears the comment and thinks to himself that Jinho completely flipped out if he had seen the high A-rank gate with the Knights Guild. They begin the raid, and as they start walking, the media begins snapping pictures of them. Reporters bombard Jinwoo with questions about why he named his guild Ahjin and how he feels about their first guild raid and what his relationship with Soohyun is. Seeing the media and public attention, Jinwoo turns to manager Woo and asks how everyone knows so much about their personal information when the association is supposed to be keeping it private. Manager Woo explains that while the association is protecting his personal information, they cannot stop the public from knowing the location of gates and advises him to be careful about what they post on social media. Jinwoo recalls the Instagram picture and acknowledges that he will keep this in mind. Jinho then points out that they need a mining team or a hauling team to collect all the essence stones since they cannot do it themselves. Jinwoo reassures him not to worry and says he will have his shadows collect them instead. Manager Woo begins analyzing the ranks of Jinwoo's summoned beasts and discovers that all of them are B rank or higher. He concludes that a strike team like this is more than qualified to enter an A rank gate and realizes that Jinwoo is making fools of everyone, debating whether this is preferential treatment. He gives the green signal to start the raid, but to their surprise, Manager Woo starts preparing to join them. He explains that the chairman has ordered him to observe their raid to ensure this is a safe idea and asks if it is okay for him to accompany them as a representative of the surveillance team just for today. Jinwoo asks if he will be okay, and Manager Woo is taken aback by the question, wondering why Jinwoo would ask this. After a few minutes, Manager Woo finally understands the meaning behind Jinwoo's words as he watches the summoned beasts easily kill all the magic beasts. The Night Soldiers begin stabbing the Naga, which is an A-rank beast, while the rest of the shadows also join in and start killing them. Beru effortlessly slices off one of the Naga's heads in an instant. Manager Woo stuns watching Beru and realizes that no magic beast is a match for Jinwoo since his shadows can regenerate. He comments that Beru is incredibly powerful among all the shadows. Igris then joins the fight wielding a longsword and begins killing magic beasts using lightning magic from the sword. Manager Woo is amazed and wonders how Igris can wield lightning magic just by swinging its weapon. Igris continues his rampage, slicing through all the Nagas with the longsword and finishing them off with lightning magic. Manager Woo is shocked by Igris's strength and starts to wonder if it is an A rank or possibly even higher, and questions if he could win a one-on-one fight against Igris. The ant shadows begin eating the corpses of the magic beasts, and Jinwoo frustratingly kicks one of them, reminding them again not to eat the corpses as they contain highly valuable essence stone. Jinwoo then commands his shadows to mine mana crystals. Manager finally understands that Jinwoo is not only capable of clearing an A-rank dungeon, but can also retrieve corpses and collect essence stones by himself. He realizes that Jinwoo is far more than just a one-man strike squad and begins to understand why the chairman requested him to observe this raid. They finally reach the dungeon boss, which wields two massive weapons and resembles a large blue serpent. Jinwoo commands the shadows, who are working to continue their tasks, while ordering the rest to return to him. Manager Woo asks why Jinwoo is sending his shadows away when his summoned beasts are more than capable of taking down the boss. Jinwoo brings out his S-rank daggers and explains that relying on his shadows too much will make him lose his touch. He dashes forward at the Naga boss, which tries to attack him, but Jinwoo dodges the strike and slashes its head, defeating the dungeon boss with a single blow. Manager Woo is left completely shocked by Jinwoo's overwhelming strength. After defeating the dungeon boss, Jinwoo levels up and several of his skills improve, with the most important being the shadow exchange skill. Jinwoo feels happy as he notices the cooldown period has decreased to 1 hour and realizes that if he continues leveling up, he will be able to go anywhere without worrying about his family's safety. Manager Woo observes that the Naga's scales are tough enough to be used as shields or armor, yet Jinwoo sliced through them effortlessly with just his 2 daggers. Jinwoo then uses his shadow extraction skill to raise the dungeon boss as a shadow. The system confirms that the shadow's power has been successfully enhanced and it will start at level 13. Jinwoo smiles as he notices that the rank of the shadow is the same as Tusk and wonders if it is as strong as it was when alive. However, Jinwoo becomes becomes confused as he notices the shadow has become smaller, as his shadows usually remain the same size or grow larger when he extracts them. But this one is emitting an enormous amount of mana despite its smaller size. Jinwoo guesses that it might be as strong as Tusk and considers that if it can grow in size using magic like Tusk, and this will be a huge advantage for his army. The system prompts him to name the shadow, and Jinwoo decides to name it Jima. Jinho watches all of this and is impressed by Jinwoo's ability to turn magic beasts into shadows and calls him an incredible person. Jinho then suggests that they should head out, and Jinwoo asks what they should do about the corpse and decides that Tusk would be perfect to carry it. As Tusk carries the corpse, reporters are surprised by how quickly Jinwoo completed the raid and begin taking pictures of Tusk. Tusk feels shy after noticing the attention, and Jinho points out that there are so many reporters now. Manager Wu looks pale after witnessing the raid and later explains everything to Chairman Go. The chairman listens carefully and remarks that Wu has seen many different raids over the years and understands why he feels overwhelmed after checking the reports. Still in shock, Manager Wu explains that what he witnessed was not a raid but a massacre. Chairman Go begins sweating after hearing this and requests Manager Wu to take some rest. Go Gunhee reflects on what Jinwoo has accomplished and thinks to himself that Jinwoo has cleared an A-rank dungeon, mined mana crystal, and retrieved corpses all by himself. He concludes that calling Jinwoo a one-man strike squad is an understatement and realizes that Jinwoo is actually a one-man guild. Feeling proud of Jinwoo, Chairman Go starts smiling and reassures himself that he was not wrong about him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Tokyo, where a massive gate appears. Pedestrians stop in their tracks as they notice the size of the gate and are left in shock. This event is set to change the tides, not only Korean hunters, but for the entire world.